My guest today is Steve McCoy Thompson, a Pasadena native with an East Coast education and a global footprint, having lived in Togo, China, and India. With a background spanning over 50 countries, Steve has contributed to international nonprofits and corporate giants like Bechtel and Deloitte. Currently leading Gratitude Network, he's been a Pleasantonian for 25 years, married happily for 35, and a proud parent. An author of 4 books, Steve's expertise extends from faith to historical fiction. Emphasizing community and collaboration, he brings a wealth of experience and wisdom. Join us as Steve shares his journey with us. Hello, Steve.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Great. It's wonderful to be here in your beautiful home.
Thank
you for inviting me.
Thank you. Welcome to my studio.
Yes.
I'm so happy you're here. Met you recently. It was it was very nice to listen to you.
Yeah.
And have a very calming effect. So very calm.
My wife would disagree, but thank you.
Yeah. So let me know about like your journey. And I know I read a lot about what you do, but I want to know from your own mouth, like how did you, what happened like in your life from when you were younger to where you are right now?
Yes. What happened?
What happened?
What happened? I was thinking about that, and I think that actually, in some ways, my journey began 6 weeks after I was born.
Oh.
I was born in San Francisco, and my dad was drafted into the Army.
Okay.
And so he had to drive with, my mom and me, 6-week-old baby, all the way to Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Okay.
And I think it was not a fun journey.
You've been traveling since then.
Yeah, and so I think it got into my bones. And so I've been traveling ever since then. And then the other thing I think was important is my dad had a big library. Oh. So I remember reading his books and reading, young reader versions of history and wanting to be involved in the world.
Okay.
Right? And that's one thing I've tried to impart to my children, like engage in the world. And so you combine those two things and it's launched me. And so I guess my first pivot point, which I didn't realize it was a pivot point, but I went to school at Duke University. So I had to drive from Southern California, where I grew up, drove across country with a friend.
Okay.
And about a year later, I got a crush on a girl.
Okay.
And she was taking Chinese language.
Oh.
And I thought, I'll take Chinese language too.
Just to be with her.
Just to be with her. And I knew that Duke was planning their first study abroad program in China a year from that point when I first started. And this is back in 1982.
Okay.
So a long time ago.
Yeah.
And so my relationship with this girl lasted, I don't know if you can even call it a relationship. It was like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And then that ended, and then she dropped Chinese altogether.
Okay.
And so here I am taking Chinese. But that's what happened. So then the next year I went to China.
Okay.
And we went to Beijing for several months.
Okay.
Beijing Teachers College, and then we studied at Nanjing University for another 4 to 5 months.
That's their main university?
Yeah, Beijing is a very, one of the more well-known universities.
Yeah.
And Nanjing is also very well-known.
Okay, Nanjing is a separate university.
Yeah, they're two different cities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so and it was just amazing because China had just opened to America really in 1979.
Okay.
And so I was one of the very first people, Caucasian from America, to go there.
Okay.
And it was a program of about 17 other people, students. And it was incredible. You know, like you'd be bargaining for a melon on the street in Chinese, and you'd look around and be 20 people just staring at you
Yeah.
because they couldn't believe.
You could speak the language, or
Yeah,
because you had learned it.
I had learned it, and then I
Okay.
can speak it. I could speak it pretty well, and now it's
Oh.
okay.
Okay.
我什么都忘了,
Oh,
which means
wow.
I've forgotten everything. But
Yeah, I think once you stop using it,
it does fade.
just,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
So was it Mandarin or
Yeah, Mandarin. Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And yeah.
Right.
And so anyway, so I came back, I graduated, and I worked for a year in Washington D.C. at a U.S. Asian think tank, and I was trying to decide whether to go to law school or
Okay.
to an international relations graduate school.
Yeah.
And my parents, who've been, wonderful parents, very supportive, but they wanted me to go to law school. And I asked a lot of lawyers if they enjoyed their work, and I didn't get a very positive answer. And so I went to the international relations school
Okay.
at Tufts University.
Okay.
And they train a lot of foreign service officers.
Okay.
And there I met the woman of my dreams, who's my wife.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that worked out very well. And then another pivot point was at the end of grad school, particularly with this kind of a grad school, you have to decide if you're committed to, if you're involved in the relationship, if you're committed or not.
Okay.
And so, because if you don't, you're going to go all over the world and you may never see them again.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
so we did two things. One, we got engaged.
Okay.
And
Okay.
two, we made a deal. And the deal was that whoever got the job first, the other person would follow.
Okay.
And so I was involved in, East Asia, and I had done some work in Korea as an internship. And so I was waiting for a job in Korea.
Okay.
But she got the job first with Catholic Relief Services in Togo, West Africa.
Wow.
And so again,
Okay.
everybody, friends, my parents,
Yeah.
go take the job. That's your career. But I committed.
Yes. Yeah.
And also my Mary, my wife, she had said at the time, sure, go ahead, but I may not be waiting. It's like, okay.
Yeah. You made a deal. You had
I
to.
made a deal, yes. So I went, and amazingly enough, there was a Korean company working in Togo.
Wow.
And so it was a U.S. Korean textile factory. So I'm very persistent, and so I banged on the door until they gave me
Wow.
the job. And so
So if there's a right, you had the right, what do you say? Like, if you have the right, if you are doing the right things happen, right?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Because
Yes.
you didn't break the deal. You said, okay, this was the initial plan, and
Yeah,
this is
that's
how
right.
we're gonna. That's
Yeah.
great.
And there's also, I think there's a great quote from this philosopher Goethe, who said there's magic in boldness.
Yes.
And when you take a step, then doors will open that would never have been possible if you hadn't taken the first step.
Yeah.
So in some ways, having a crush on a girl and going
Yeah.
to China, or making the decision to go to
Yeah.
Togo, doors opened.
Doors open.
Doors
Yes.
opened.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, you came back 1 year.
Okay.
There for a
All
year.
right. Okay.
And it was actually incredible. So I ended up going to travel and be with her. I ended up living 2 hours north of the capital
Okay.
at the textile factory
Okay.
with about 20 other Korean technicians and about 100 other Togolese workers
Okay.
at a textile factory. And so Mary she would pick me up on Saturday at noon,
Okay.
drive me back to the capital, drop me off Sunday. I would take a
Okay.
bush taxi, which is like a crowded van,
Okay.
and you go back up and they drop me off at the factory. And then I lived there, for 5.5 days a week.
Okay.
And I ended up, one little story, they would have breakfast at 6:30 in the morning, and I would eat oxtail soup and kimchi for breakfast, which was kind of tough. And they would all march out to the courtyard, and we would stand in front of our flags. And so Koreans would stand in front of the Korean flag and sing the Korean national anthem.
Okay.
The Togolese would stand in front of the Togolese
Oh,
flag
that's
and
so
sing in
nice.
French their
Okay. Okay.
national anthem. I speak some French.
Okay.
Um, and I was in the middle, and luckily I didn't have to sing because I'm a terrible voice. But we all recited the company
Alright.
pledge
Okay.
in Korean. We'd all go, yeah,
Oh,
and go
okay.
march off to work.
Okay.
So
And then from there,
then I came back and we got married
okay.
in California. We were honeymoon. We drove across country again.
Okay.
I've
Okay.
driven across country like 10 times.
Okay.
So I love it. And so we drove across country. We had a job in DC, and it was essentially with this nonprofit organization.
Okay, that's how you started,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
And we would work with cities around the world
Okay.
and help them improve their management. It's called the International City Management Association.
Okay.
And so we did that for about 10 years, or I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And then we wanted to come back to California because that's where our families are. Her
Yeah.
family's from San Jose.
Okay.
And so I got a job at Bechtel Corporation,
Okay.
and I did more international work there with
All
them.
right.
They would do a lot of, to get big projects, like a $1 billion project, they would often set aside $75 million, $100 million to train the local workforce in a
Okay.
skill. And so
Okay.
I was involved in that to
All
some
right.
degree.
Okay.
And then, so I did that work for a while, and then we got an opportunity to go to India.
Oh,
When my kids were, my daughter was going to 6th and my son was going to 8th grade.
okay.
And so they were not happy. They thought I was the
Really?
worst, you know. In fact,
Especially that age group,
Oh, yeah.
kids are like,
they are. I
Yeah.
remember having talked with my wife about, I thought, well, we'll tell them what we're going to do on this adventure and they'll be kind of upset, but they'll be kind of enthused about it.
yeah.
And she said, no, 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 no. If they don't scream and cry and run up to their room and lock the door, then that's a victory.
Yeah.
And so sure enough, they screamed and cried. They ran upstairs, but they didn't lock the door.
Didn't, so you,
And so we went with that. And so they
Okay.
went, but at the end of that year, they did not want to come home.
yeah.
And it was a big rural electrification program I was running. So it was
Okay.
funded by the U.S. Agency for International Development.
Okay.
And we had rural electrification programs throughout India. We were based in Delhi.
Okay.
And we did a lot of work in Karnataka down near Bangalore.
Okay.
But I ran, we had programs in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh and
Okay.
Afghanistan and Nepal. And so we did some traveling there as well.
Wow. Okay.
And
So you said you traveled 50 countries, right?
Yes,
Over 50?
over 50
Over
countries.
50 countries.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
yeah, it's been great, And
Yeah.
again, I'd like to engage in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's what your grad school also, right? International relations.
absolutely.
You were all
Yeah, we're
doing
all
that, right?
Yes.
So
yeah.
the world is like one globe for you, right? So it's all one.
Yeah, and so then I came back and I ended up working at Deloitte Consulting for a few years and
Okay.
doing more international travel.
Okay.
And then I had this heart for nonprofit work. So I started to circle back
Okay.
on that. And so I've run a couple of nonprofits.
Okay.
And then, in fact, I ran PPIE, the Pleasanton Partnerships and Education
Yeah.
Foundation, which is right, in Pleasanton.
Yeah.
And so we raised money for Pleasanton schools. And that was great, because I got to be involved in the community in a way that I hadn't been involved in before.
Yeah.
And so
And
that
now,
was really good. And then, so I did that for about 7 years and we grew it quite a bit.
okay.
And then a friend of mine started a program called Gratitude Network.
Okay.
And it's a nonprofit. And he himself is a business guy. He started his own VC firm.
Okay.
Before that, he was one of the first employees at Yahoo.
Okay.
And so what he wanted to do is create a program where you're effectively investing in social entrepreneurs
Okay.
and helping them grow.
All right.
And so I've known Randy Haken as a founder, and we've been friends for a long time.
Okay.
And about a year and a half ago, we decided that he wanted to sort of leave the executive director role and become the chair.
Okay.
And I was looking for a change from PPIE
Yeah.
because I want to do more global work.
Yes.
So I'm now the executive director.
Okay. Okay.
And so we're still working together, but I've taken that role on. And one of the things that we do a couple things. We kind of screen for nonprofits.
Yeah.
We get over 1,000 applications
Yeah.
per year, and we whittle it down to about 40.
Okay.
And we enter them into a fellowship program.
Okay.
And we give them one-on-one leadership coaching and a business class on how to apply business principles to their work and peer networking. And it works.
Yeah.
You know, and one thing I discovered in my international work was that the only way to make a difference in a community is you've got to be there on the ground, working with the families and the children for the long term.
Okay.
And so what I feel what our Gratitude Network does is we identify nonprofits that are working there now.
Yeah.
And we try to invest in them and help them to do more of what they do better.
Yeah.
And so after they go through the program, we can show that they're able to triple the number of children that they serve within 3 years of the program. So it's kind of like, it's almost, we call it like a leveraged social venture model.
And basically what you're doing is like you're training the leaders to become like high achieve leaders, right?
Yeah.
So they can do more, right?
That's right, exactly. And give them the skills
and
to run their program. And then the fun part about the peer networking is, you know, running a nonprofit is kind of a lonely business. And a lot of these are small organizations.
Yeah.
And just connecting them with other leaders
Yeah.
so they realize that they're not alone.
Yeah.
That's been very powerful.
Because sharing of ideas and
Yes.
this kind of things is important, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think the problems, it doesn't matter what country or where regions you are, everyone has like maybe a little different, but there's so many common problems, right? Which like how do you take care of education? It's like, you know, it's similar issues.
That's right. And that's one of the things that I've loved about the international work I've done is it's given me almost like two perspectives. One is that the way we do things here is not the way everybody else does it. I think when you live in a bubble, you think, well, this is just the way. And that's when we took our kids to India, it burst their bubble.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a great perspective. But at the same time, as you said, we have a lot of commonalities as well.
Yeah.
And so I wish more people had the opportunity to experience what the world is doing. And I'm hoping actually that, you know, the birth of virtual reality and kind of the work that we're doing will allow people to see what's going on in other countries.
Yeah.
And then they'll have, I think, more empathy for other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Obviously there are cultural differences, but then human needs are still the same.
Yes.
Right? Like we all, you know, need this food, shelter, and similar kind of comforts, right? So it doesn't matter. And then same thing with family relationships. I think it doesn't matter where you are and who you are, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It's all a little different, but it's still kind of the same lines.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and then so gratitude. That's the name of the company you work for, right? Yes. So gratitude is thankfulness. It's powerful.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. You know, I've done a lot of thinking about gratitude.
Yeah.
And I've tried to be more grateful in my own life.
Yeah.
But one thing I've felt, or at least come to believe, is that the way gratitude is presented, or we're encouraged to feel gratitude, is a kind of an inward-facing look, that we are supposed to feel grateful for what we have. And that's very true. I think that, there's been a lot of studies that have shown that, the more grateful you are for what you have, the happier you are, right?
Yeah.
But I've also come to believe that gratitude can be a verb, that it can be, that it's best when it's expressed in the world, right? And so, if you can share with your family members that you're grateful for them, then you're making them feel good, but it's you're expressing that sense of gratitude. It's getting it out in the world.
So by expression, you mean expression by taking care of them or telling them?
All of it.
All of it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that when you feel gratitude for something, do something about it. Activate your gratitude. And so in Gratitude Network, what we're doing is we recognize these people who are working really hard. I mean, they're devoting their lives. In our case, the nonprofits we support they focus on children and youth.
Okay.
And they help them with access to quality education, which a lot of them don't have, access to clean water or COVID vaccinations, or we talked to one fellow recently. They work with kids in India who are runaways, and they try to get them at the train station before they're snatched up by the gangs. Because once they're in the gangs, it's very tough. So they devote their lives to that, right? We also are working with nonprofits that work with human trafficking. And there's a lot of that goes on in Alameda County. And so just kind of recognizing these people that are doing this amazing work.
Yeah.
It's hard work. It's lonely work. And then trying to help them, from our position of gratitude. I mean, we're very, we're well off here, right?
Yes.
Compared to the rest of the world,
blessed,
it's amazing. Very blessed. And so trying to do that. And then one thing actually, when you mentioned the word blessed, which I didn't share a part of my journey, but I think it's important. When I was raised without faith, and my parents had bad experiences with their religious upbringing, so they left it.
Yeah.
And my mom was raised as a Catholic, and she left it, for very good reasons of her own. And so, of course, what I did is I married a Catholic.
Oh.
Right?
Okay.
It's almost like the circle.
Circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had made a decision at some point that I had to make a decision. Am I going to be a faith-filled person or not?
Yeah.
And so I went through a year-long discernment program about whether or not I should join the faith.
Oh. Okay.
And it was a tough year. I asked a lot of questions. And in fact, I published a book about it, about my journey.
Yeah.
And so at the end of that journey, I made the decision to join that faith.
Okay.
And I believe that all faiths are valid. I really do.
Yeah.
But I had to pick one.
You had to.
And I found myself surrounded by Catholics. My wife and my two wonderful children.
Yeah.
And so that's the path I chose.
Okay.
And that has informed me as well.
Okay.
Just the sense of gratitude, and that I believe that, God works through people.
Yeah.
And so you manifest whatever faith you have in the world, and that's how you grow a sense of, whether people believe in God or not.
Yeah.
You grow faith in the world.
Yeah, faith in the world. So you said, I saw in your, when I asked you for your bio, you said you wrote 4 books.
Yes.
So one is that you just talked about the faith. What are the other books you wrote?
Sure.
So,
well, 2 are, I suppose I picked up from my dad's library of history books. But
So
those,
kept-
so
you kept
2,
reading a lot as
absolutely.
growing up. Yeah.
Yes. And so 2 are historical fiction for young readers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were great. In fact, I when we were driving long distances, with my family, our kids, because we live in Northern California. My parents are still in Southern California, long drives.
Okay.
And I would make up stories for them. And one story, which took place actually around, honestly, believe it or not, around World War II.
Okay.
And I made this up, and I thought, that's a pretty good story. I'm going to write it out as a Christmas gift to my kids. And so I spent, a while writing this thing out, and I printed it up and made a nice cover and gave it to them for Christmas. And people thought, this is good. You should publish it. So I went back and I tidied it up.
Okay.
And I went in and my son, I think, was in first or second grade at the time. So I would do readings of the chapters to these kids in the classroom.
Yeah.
And I noticed that if they were kind of fidgety, like I'm fidgety now, I mean, they weren't really paying attention. But if they were riveted, then I knew the chapter was good.
Oh, wow. That's a good indicator.
Don't you think? Yeah. So I wrote that, and I wrote a sequel. So that's 2 books. Then I had this journey, one about my faith journey. And then the 4th book was with the guy who founded the Gratitude Network. And he and I both went through a similar faith journey. He converted from Judaism.
Okay.
And went through the same program. And so he and I wrote a book together about faith fellowship.
Okay.
And how to bring people, particularly men, together in a fellowship. It was almost like a how-to book in a friendly way of how can you do this? How can you have a meaningful experience?
Okay. Okay. So that must be a really good experience, writing together and brainstorming and things like that, right?
Yeah, it was really great. Yeah.
Okay. And then while traveling so many countries, you said over 50 countries, what is the commonalities that you saw? Like, is there something that you would like to talk about? Like, because I've actually really met somebody who's traveled so much. 50 countries is a lot.
It's a lot.
Or maybe more, right?
Yeah, maybe actually, yes, a little bit more.
A little bit more.
In fact, I recently surpassed my age with the number of countries. So I'm a little depressed about that.
So yeah, you need to beat that now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
what was your observation? Like, it's kind of good.
Oh, well, the commonalities, people, they care about their children.
Okay.
Unless they get into dire situation.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are situations where things are so bad that they give their children up so that they don't starve.
Yeah.
They think they're going to make some money. And and there are people who prey on that.
Okay.
But for the most part, people want the best for their children. Right?
Yeah.
And that's very common.
Okay.
And they want something better for the future, which many people don't have.
Yeah.
But they can see that in their children, which is one reason why Gratitude Network, we're trying to focus on the children.
Okay.
And convince the families to invest in the children. So one example, one of the nonprofits we've supported, they're based in India. They're called Society for Children.
Okay.
And particularly during COVID, you had a lot of families who allowed their children to just drop out of school because they needed to make money. And in that moment.
Yeah.
Perfectly understandable. And then once these kids are on the street, sometimes they'll get sucked in by gangs. And then the gangs will turn them onto drugs so they can have them hooked for a long time. And so what this program does is they go out and they identify these kids. They work with the families to convey to them, like to almost remind them that this is your future. This is the family's collective future. So we got to get them back into school, and if we can, we'll provide the family with a stipend to do that. Okay. There's another program, another nonprofit we're doing that does just that. They pay the families a certain amount of money, and the children earn that money by going to school.
All right.
Right.
Okay.
And so, but back to your question, just that that desire for helping their children, wanting to have hope in the future, and wanting to belong to something.
And that's where the whole goal of gratitude networks is, like mostly kids, the
Yeah.
areas related to
Yeah, that's right.
children,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and we work with
Right?
a lot of these nonprofits in the Bay Area.
Okay.
So I'd say of the over 200 nonprofits we've worked with, and through them we've reached 47 million children. I'd say about a third of them are from the U.S., and many of those are from the Bay Area. And so, we one great program in Oakland. They have helped turn around struggling schools throughout the country. And really through it since our program, they've gone from 6 schools to like 180 schools. It's amazing. And there's another program in Oakland that we've worked with, and we just started a program where we're partnering with businesses. So we got one of our supporters from Google put together a team of experts in AI, machine learning, and is giving advice to this local nonprofit about how to use the data that they're accumulating regarding chronic absenteeism in schools, which I don't know if you know this, but since COVID, in Oakland, it's gone from 14% to 44%.
Wow.
And so it's huge.
That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, and so using data to get a better handle on what interventions are helping address absenteeism and which are not. So you can be more mindful about the work that you do. So
Yeah. I think a lot of, things, 2.5 to 3 years, the kids were at home, that also made them
yes.
like, kind of home, like they want to be back in their comfort area.
I think
right?
that's right.
Yeah.
And one thing I learned, the founder of this nonprofit, she dropped out herself after 10th grade because she had, unlike many families, have had a negative experience with the school.
Yeah.
This woman has gone on to get her PhD, and she's running a great organization.
Yeah.
But she was telling me about how many families, they don't really see the value of school to begin with. And so why would they encourage their kids to go if they don't want to go?
Yeah.
Right? So it's a whole
learning
cycle
process,
you have to break. Yeah.
right? Train the family, the whole family basically, right?
That's right.
That
yeah.
it's beneficial in the
Yes.
long run.
Yes.
And school or some structure, homeschool or whatever they're doing, it's okay. But there has to be some structure in the
That's
life
right.
of the kids.
And that's why,
Right?
as we were talking earlier about,
Yeah.
it leads to a lot of depression and anxiety and suicide among children.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I did when I was at PPIE, I started a program where students would do mock interviews with business people just to give them a sense of kind of prepare for the future. And as part of a program to get them to see a future for themselves.
Yeah.
Because my feeling is that one reason why kids get depressed and anxious is that they don't see a future for themselves.
Yeah.
But if you can give them an idea of, oh, look, here's a career for you, it's worth going through all the muck
effort.
of high school to get there.
Yeah. Because kids always have this question, like, what's the logic behind learning?
Yeah.
Like,
What's the point?
what's the point?
Yes, exactly.
Because then we should be able to answer them. Yeah, here is the point.
Yes.
Look at this person. You're not going to solve equations when you are doing a job, but it'll build your what's called accountability or reasoning or something.
Yeah. So like my nephew, he did not do well in school because he just didn't see the point of it.
Yeah.
And then he did get into a college, went there, which is great. And there he stumbled into this idea of construction management.
Okay.
And now he's on fire.
Yeah.
He's amazing, but in high school, nobody told him that was an option.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know, so
There's so many alternative fields that you don't require 100% the same like linear path. There's an exponential path, right?
yes, yeah. So many kids think that
Yeah.
success is a straight line through Stanford,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
it's not.
It's not.
Yeah.
And
When I
you
look
can
at my own
always,
career, it's been a circle.
yeah. Yeah. You did what you really cared for.
Yeah.
That's very important. Right?
And as I was telling you, you know, these pivot points in my life, they've made me who I am.
Yeah.
And if my family had insisted, you know, by God, you're going to law school,
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd
Yeah.
be happy.
Yeah. No, and I feel like the way you said, like, you found your your main focus was giving, since
Yeah.
your first
Yeah.
job was, you said, a nonprofit, and that's probably you came back
Yeah.
to it, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what you felt more fulfilled.
That's right. Yeah.
Right?
And
Yeah.
in fact, I was thinking about this a while ago. In fact, when I was in high school, one of my goals was to run a nonprofit,
Oh, wow.
which seems like a weird goal, but eventually
Yeah.
I circled around to that.
But then, which is like, I'm impressed that even that young you knew what a nonprofit is.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I know.
It's like,
How did I know?
yeah, that's yeah, but probably you got the right exposure also. Like somebody told you, or maybe you were curious yourself.
Yeah, I think
Like,
that's true.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Because
remember.
sometimes the kids are not sure like what that means, right? Like, but
Yeah, I had an uncle who was very important in my life.
okay.
And I remember having debates with my dad about all sorts of stuff.
Okay.
Whether or not, getting involved in some issue, some political issue, or who was better, the Beatles or the Rolling Stones.
Okay.
But just watching someone debate my dad, who was very kind, but a kind of a big personality, and so having someone do that, it gave me a glimpse of what it felt like to be engaged and be involved and to care about whether the Beatles were better than the Rolling Stones.
Yeah. So it's good to have good discussions in the family then, right?
Yeah.
Because the kids are listening.
They totally are.
It's okay to discuss, and sometimes discussions may not have the decision, but it's good to kind of talk, and right?
Yeah.
Because the kids are learning from it.
Oh, they totally are.
Right? Yeah, all the time.
When I was a kid, we would have, discussion topics.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, which I think it was good. And then we
Yeah.
always had dinner together,
Yeah.
which is doesn't always happen anymore.
Yeah. No, I know. It's just we all try to, but maybe a couple of times a week.
Oh
we
yeah,
try.
something is good.
Something is good, like because kids are also busy and everything. Everybody's so
Oh
busy
yeah,
nowadays.
that's incredible. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's almost too much.
Yeah, but that's I like.
Yeah, like really, like what you're doing now, you're telling stories. You're helping people to tell their stories.
Yeah.
People see that.
Yeah.
They see that it's important to you, storytelling,
Yes.
and that's going to impact the way people go forward in their life.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel it's important to encourage, like, things like, even I'm still learning, I feel like,
Yeah.
like
Oh,
you
yeah.
said about discussions, right? Sometimes in family discussions, we all will like hope it doesn't become into an argument, right?
Yeah.
But it's a good thing to have a discussion.
Yes.
Like we shouldn't be afraid to, even if the voice raise a little bit, it's okay.
Yes. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
Because if people are so passionate about something, they're going to have a little like erased voice. It's fine as long as it's still polite.
Yeah.
But it's good to have discussions, brainstorming sessions in the family. I think the kids will also be not scared to
Voice their opinion.
voice their opinions.
Yeah.
It's important, right? Like,
And somebody told me once, which I think it's true, that everybody is at least 10% right,
yeah.
which means like even if you disagree vehemently, they may have come from a perspective that has some validity.
Yeah.
And so try to understand, try to reach that point, and then maybe you can grow from there.
Yeah. So one last question, Steve. I just want to ask you,
why is giving important? Like, what, like some people give a lot, some people, and what is the, what, how much of giving is important? Like this, though, is there a percent, or is it like you can give as much as you want to, or you think whatever is a comfort level?
Yeah, sure.
What is, and is giving only by money, or is it other giving? Like, just talk about giving as such: time, money, asset.
Sure. Yeah. We had a priest at our church a long time ago, and he talked about how, if your giving comes from a sense of guilt, and you don't really want to do it, don't.
Okay.
Right? But if you can, give what you can. There's a ancient story of a woman who went up and gave like 2 pennies and into the donation at their synagogue.
Yeah.
This is a story from the Bible.
Yeah.
And the rich folks were like, oh, it's nothing. And Jesus said, and I don't really quote Jesus very much.
Yeah.
But he
This
said,
is a story,
this person is
so yeah.
giving from what, from the little that they have.
Yeah.
And they're still giving. And it is interesting how so often the poorer people are, the greater percentage of their income they give.
Yeah.
And
I've heard this exact story
Have
from
you?
my grandfather. Can
Really?
you believe that? It's the same story.
Oh,
Yeah.
no kidding.
Yeah. It's like, it doesn't matter if you're poor or rich. It's what, giving from the heart. That's what he said to
Yes.
me. And also he said to me, like, if someone is giving you like, in India, there's rupees, right? But they make only, let's say they make only 5, but they're giving 2. So
Yeah.
they're giving more than
Yes.
if someone is making a lot, but giving even more than 2.
That to give is to receive.
Yeah.
And it's the whole idea of activating your gratitude, expressing your gratitude. If you sit with the gratitude, that's fine. But if you can express it and give into the world, then you're connecting with the world, you're sharing it out, and then you will receive. And so in terms of the way you give, yeah, there's different ways.
Okay.
Obviously, nonprofits are always struggling for funds.
Yeah.
And if you believe in their cause, help them with that.
Yeah.
Right? But they also are looking for volunteer time, and going out and serving food at a soup kitchen. It may seem like nothing, but I guarantee you will come away feeling better. You'll feel connected to humanity.
Yeah.
Or join a board of an organization, or just share the news about what you're passionate about
Yeah.
with your friends.
Yeah.
And you grow. Like one thing so you have gratitude, you also have the network. So it's called Gratitude Network. And
It's
so
like,
we're trying to encourage people to grow that network. And you can give, but you can also just follow. We several times a year, we host Zoom calls where we invite people to meet the leaders of these organizations and get to know them.
yeah.
So we did one a couple weeks ago from Guatemala, another from India, one from Madagascar, one from
Okay.
Oakland. And so we have these, they're forums.
Okay.
And it's a great way, I think it's a really inspiring way. We do it at 8 in the morning to start your day. Like, oh, okay, I'm going to the office or I'm doing whatever on the house. But somebody else is out there really working hard to make a difference in the world. And I think it restores one's faith in humanity. There's so much negative news now
Yeah.
that we forget about these good stories.
Yeah.
And I think we need to remind ourselves of them. And so giving and engaging is a way to do that.
All right. All right. Is there anything that we forgot to talk about? Any last message or anything you want to say?
I'm grateful to
closing
be here.
comment.
Yeah, to be a part of this conversation, to share the story
Yeah.
and the stories.
Yeah.
So I thank you for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I like the way you talked about, giving and, that's, I feel like the world has progressed in so many years, but the basic issues are still there, right? The
Yes.
kids who don't get enough food, or kids who don't get enough guidance or education, or even not only that, like their safety, those I feel like really like passionate about, like kids who are not safe, in their wherever they're living, in their homes or in
Oh,
their
yeah.
communities,
Yeah, and
we need to provide at least their safety.
if you want to, I mean,
Yeah.
and giving, frankly, I think has a selfish component, which is fine, because these kids are our future.
Yeah.
And and I know it's a trite thing to say, but it's absolutely true. If we don't enable some of these impoverished children to have hope for the future, they will turn their back on the future,
Yeah.
and things could get bad.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not only you're helping these children, but you're creating a
Good
future for yourself.
future citizens of the world, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I really believe that.
Yeah. And same thing, when people get old, they become weak, as little kids are weak, right? They don't have money, or they don't, like, you have to feed them when they're young, you feed them or you
Yes.
help them. And the same thing comes back when when people become old, you become the same, you're going through the same, you need help,
Yeah.
right?
Well, so
coming back,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. My wife has said, if you want your children to take care of you when you're older,
Yeah.
then you should take care of your parents,
Yeah.
because they are going to be watching you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so
that's true.
it's part of that,
That's a really good point,
isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. She's very smart.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, she runs a nonprofit as well.
Okay. Yeah, I would love to meet her sometime.
Yes, that would be great.
Yeah. But like it's impressive, the whole journey that you talked about, the being a global citizen you are, going and visiting and staying in different countries, and
Yes.
making good connections, and treating the world as one place. That's something that really is impressive. Yeah,
Oh,
very,
thank
very
you.
impressive.
Thank you.
Because most of the people, we like live a couple of 2, 3, 5 places, and that's it. Now it's
Yeah.
like
Which is fine,
which
right?
is fine.
It's absolutely fine.
But at least coming from you,
Yeah.
it's like it's like I feel like you've seen enough the whole world, and you've seen that what the basic needs are, what the
Yeah.
important things are
Yeah.
for our future generation, and how do we, as adults, right, we can give back, and we can create a better world, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been a great journey, and I think the one thing that I can say that I did is I took opportunities to move forward, and when doors opened, I tried to step through them, and that's led me to
Yeah.
a lot of places.
A lot of places.
Yeah, but you don't have to travel.
Yeah, no, you can nowadays, especially now, there's internet and those kind of things. You can do a lot of things remotely also if
Yeah,
you
that's right.
want
Yeah.
to,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but you were lucky enough.
I was very lucky. Yeah.
Because it's always hard to move with the family, and sometimes the kids won't cooperate, sometimes the spouse won't, or the pets in the house, right? Those becomes like little problems, like, oh, how do you travel, or how
Yeah.
do you leave everything and go, right?
Yeah.
But even that can be solvable can be solved with now that all these Zoom and all these online stuff that's happening, right?
Yes.
Like internet, you can meet people you can see people.
Yeah, when I went to China the first time, there was no internet.
Yeah.
And you would write a letter and you wouldn't hear back for another month.
For another month.
Really.
Yeah.
And when I went a second time to China. Like it was 30 years apart.
Oh,
and
wow.
it was a very different situation.
Different China, different part. The world has changed.
Oh, when I went back to Beijing, the Beijing that I knew was gone.
Yeah.
And it can be completely replaced by a new Beijing.
Yeah. I feel like the world has changed. It's become beautiful, obviously, but their technology and everything is faster. But still, like there is a lot of need. There's the stuff for the kids we still can do to make it better for them. Because there's more. In one way it's become better, but there's other things that have come up which still have areas where we can improve, right? Or we can help our growing children here.
Yeah, and we have to.
Yeah.
And we don't have a choice. Like you say that I traveled a lot, and I did.
Yeah.
But I felt like that's just what I did. It's just who I was.
Yeah.
Right. Like it was put into my bones when I was 6 weeks old.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah, but that was thanks to your parents for doing that. Right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like at the time, I don't think I would have thanked them. I'm sure I was crying the whole way.
I know. Probably your mom would be like, "Oh my God!"
Exactly. Oh yeah, I think it was terrible. Yeah, there was one point where they stopped off in a dingy little hotel room, and they were exhausted, and they're about to lie on the bed, and sure enough, there was a scorpion on the bed.
Oh wow!
This is like somewhere between, San Francisco and New Orleans.
Oh wow! Somewhere.
Yeah, and so I think at that point, that was.
And with a little baby,
oh God,
the scorpion.
Yeah. So I don't think it looked like a blessing at that time.
It's always later on we
Isn't
realize.
Yeah.
I think so. It's worth taking that, decision or risk.
That's right.
Or whatever. Yeah. Well, thanks for joining me, Steve.
Oh, thank you. It was great.
It was really nice talking to you
Yeah,
and listening to all the stories.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, really. Thank you so much for doing this. You're giving a gift to the world.
If you want to talk about anything at all, then you know who to call. Just tell Sanjana. Tell Sanjana. Tell Sanjana. Tell Sanjana. Just tell Sanjana.